Hello, my friends. Welcome back to my channel. Up on the stand today, we have Miss Lotus Flower. And we are going to do not just a bit of grooming on her, but I think we're going to talk about the fact that she is a miracle goat, and you should know all about her story. But before we start there, let me just say, yes, I am rocking the crazy curls today. The crazy curls are happening. It is extraordinarily humid, miserable. It's not quite as hot as it has been, but the humidity is up so high that it just feels sticky. The air is heavy. It's like swimming through it. So yeah, I gave up on trying to even attempt to be presentable today, and I'm just rocking what I'm rocking. So anyway, let's talk about Miracle Goat. Miracle Goat here is a goat that has survived things that she probably shouldn't have survived. And let me explain. One year, gosh, it was probably about 5 years ago now, maybe 4, to be fair. I'd have to look at my records, and it's not all that important. It doesn't really matter. But at any rate, she was heavily pregnant. At the time, I had several does that were all due in and around the same time, due to kid, that is. She was one of them. JC was another. And Misty Morning was the other. So the camera can see everything, but I was sort of zoomed in on JC. When it's kidding season, I have the barn cameras up 24/7. They go with me everywhere. I literally walk around with them, with the video running. It's either on my phone or on my PC. If I'm on the couch, it's on the PC running right next to my face. If I'm sleeping, it's on my end table running right next to my face. There isn't much sleeping during kidding season, but it happens. So that night, I was expecting JC to kid. She was showing all signs that she was going to go ahead and kid sometime that evening. So I was pretty focused on her. And the cameras zoom in and out. So, I was able to zoom in on JC, and yes, you zoom in on their back end, which is always entertaining. People think I'm weird. But that's what I got to do to make sure I can see when, labor actually starts, when kids actually start to arrive, so I can head down to the barn. For years, I used to head down to the barn much earlier, and there were a couple things that happened there. One, my presence sort of distracted the goats, and their labor would stall a lot. And I would be standing down there down here for hours in the cold, miserable, with a goat who's like, could you leave me alone? So I stopped doing that, and I started waiting until the goat was really in active labor, meaning kids are coming, pushing is happening. And then I head down, right? So that way, if there's something that I need to intervene, if there's a breach, if there's anything that's, not positioned correctly, I'm there for the goat. Because once they start pushing, they typically don't stop. So anyway, I was pretty focused on JC, and then would zoom out every so often just to check on Lotus and Misty, but neither one of those two were showing signs of, going into labor imminently. So really focused on JC. So meanwhile, JC hadn't gone into labor. I was dozing on the couch, which is kind of my MO when this is the situation, right? I sleep for 15 minutes, and then I pop my eyes open, look at the camera, maybe get another 10 minutes, pop my eye open, depending on what I see, right? So I pop my eyes open, I look at JC, nothing. I decide I'm going to zoom the camera out just a hair. Before I can get the camera zoomed out, all I saw were 2 sets of donkey ears smashed up against the wall of their stall in the absolute alert, oh my God position. Now the cameras have noise. I can turn the volume on and hear what's going on, but I didn't need to. I saw those ears, and I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what, but I knew something was wrong. So whoosh, up I went. And I was in the barn less than 5 minutes later, and I'm being generous with 5 minutes. It was probably closer to 2 minutes, but you know, I got to get off the couch. I got to throw my boots on, throw a coat on because it is February, and get down to the barn. So probably 2 minutes. Let's call it 5 just to be generous. And what I found was Lotus up against the wall of the stall in a full-on, what appeared to be a seizure. She was absolutely racked with trembling. Her eyes were spinning. They call that nystagmus. So she had it bad, both vertical and horizontal. And she was scarily not good. Now, remember, she's heavily pregnant at this point. I'm expecting kids, you know, the next day or two. So I contact my vet immediately, which is always a fun call to make. You know, I think it was a Saturday night, actually, to be honest. And yes, it was late, so it was not a during hours call by any means. Sent her some video, right? We've, you know, talked live, etc. And the vet's like, you know, I'm not going to get there fast enough, number one. And number two, you know how to deal with this. So we talked through treatment and what we thought it was. So what we thought it was is polio. Polio in goats is not the same as polio in people. Polio in goats is not a virus. It is a vitamin B deficiency. Now, when they're pregnant, they're getting plenty of nutrition. They're getting plenty of supplementation. I give them, you know, specific minerals and grain. It's practically prenatal care. But she was clearly just pouring her resources into her kids and had depleted her vitamin B. And that's the result, is goat polio. They run an extraordinarily high fever, which she had, a dangerously high fever. They get to that point. That's what drives the seizure activity, or can be a driver of the seizure activity. Remember, I am not a vet, right? I did not go to medical school. I'm just reporting what happened with her. So don't use me as the gospel when it comes to treating your goats. But at any rate, so the plan was, of course, to get the fever down, get her vitamin B levels up and supplemented. Now, I have all of that on hand. I told you I kind of keep a medicine cabinet, and my happiest day is when medicines expire, never being used, because that means that goats didn't get sick and didn't need them. It's an expense that, you know, is significant to keep medications on hand, but this is the exact reason why I do. So I had, you know, vitamin B1, which is what she needed, plus fortified vitamin D, which is more of a B12. What are you doing, silly? You're in a faint? Yeah? You're all right. Put it down. You're okay. There you go. So, you know, start giving her injections of the vitamin B, get her under control. Vitamin B1 is also thiamine, just to give you an idea of, you know, what we're giving her. Little penicillin, just in case, but really wasn't probably the right, you know, necessary. Just kind of, you throw the kitchen sink at them at some point when they're that sick and when they've got babies on board. And then we talked about, you know, potential things like C-section. You know, are we saving the dough or are we saving the kids? The kids at this point were certainly viable had they had to be removed, but do you do that at the expense of the dough? So lots of concerns there. She did snap back. She did actually get to a point where she was stable and continued to carry her kids. She continued to gain her strength back, but it wasn't certainly full capacity. And she's supposed to go into labor any day, right? So we were under the assumption that this goat would not be able to give birth naturally. She just would not have the strength, would not have the fortitude, would not have the reserves necessary to get through a birthing process. We were wrong. About 2 days later, she gave birth to 2 beautiful twins that year. Happy, healthy, perfect babies. Those babies were nursed by her. She came into milk. She was able to stand and nurse them. At that point, she had some neurological difficulties from the high fever. She had a head tilt, and she was still wobbly on her feet. But danged if she did not decide that she was going to take care of these kids that she raised or grew, and she did. There was no bottle baby season. She took care of those babies. She did what she normally does, is put her all into her breeding. And we continued to support her, supplement her, treat her. It was months of daily vitamin B injections for her. Found a little clump under here, my girl. So she had to tolerate that. She had a head tilt that she needed to learn to work around. It was a long road to recovery, but all the while she raised those kids. We ended up, for whatever reason, taking her to a show that fall. So even though she was still in recovery, she still had a head tilt, which could have been permanent, and we kind of expected it to be permanent. We put her in the ring. She won a reserve grand champion title. This girl is a miracle. She is strong. She is strength. She is quiet fortitude. And it took about a year and a half before the head tilt resolved. And now she doesn't have a head tilt. She still has a couple of residual. Every once in a while, you'll see a strange gait or a little wobble. She certainly still has a few residual neurological signs, but absolutely nothing that will hold her down. She's gone on to kid several years after that. She did take a rest year, certainly. We, needed her to recover. We weren't going to immediately breed her again the following year. So just to be clear on that, she took a rest year. And if she needed it, she would have taken the rest of her life rest. But she's back in action, and she is better than ever. Her coat is better than ever. Her ability to stand straight, to, do all the things that goaties need to do is amazing. So the recovery was a bit unexpected, right? When you're as severe as she was, and so quickly to boot, we didn't expect, prognosis wasn't great, right? We didn't expect that she would get back to full shape. And like I said, we did not expect that she would be able to kid naturally. And Lord knows she did. So yeah, what I'll tell you about a goat like this who provides us with a bit of a miracle is, one, you appreciate them that much more. But two, you just got to respect nature, right? Like, if this was a human being that had those same problems, there is no way that the human being would have done what she did. Now, yeah, of course, there's extreme circumstances for everything. And she was certainly an extreme circumstance. But we were floored by how good things were and how good things have gotten. So I am excited this year to put her back in the show ring. She needs one leg for her master champion. She's an older goat now. She's competing against younger goats and generationally improved goats. She may never get that last leg. I thought I had retired her from the ring a year and a half ago, the last show we went to, because, she really wasn't competitive in that same sense when you look at the generational improvements in the younger goats. But I don't know whether she heard me talking about that, or just this year her body decided to do something different. But her body has put on coat, has put on some headdress again, which is weird. She had all that rubbed off. And she's in fighting, what's the word I'm looking for? Why are words eluding me today? She's in, ready to go. The phrase is on the tip of my tongue, and it'll happen as soon as I turn off the video. But that's the story of Lotus and her miracle goat behavior. And, I just can't be more proud of the fact that she was able to do all that. Not that I had anything to do with it other than being there. The fact that the donkeys alerted me to the fact that something was wrong was amazing, right? I may not have noticed her, to be honest with you. I mean, think about it. I was focused in on JC. I may have just panned, not necessarily seen that she was in distress. That's always a risk, especially late at night when you're sleep deprived during kidding season. But you trust. You got to trust your animals. And I trusted my donkeys, and I trusted that they were telling me, in the only way they know how, that something was wrong. And lo and behold, it was. So I think the donkeys get credit for saving her life, quite honestly. All I did in the intervention phase was react. My vet, who is absolutely incredible, gets credit for recognizing the signs, the symptoms, and getting me on the right track in terms of treatment. But really, the hero of the story is Lotus. So there you go. That is the story of my miracle goat, who now no longer has a head tilt, who is looking better than she ever did. And really, really appreciate her. And this is a line that I am focused on in my breeding program for these type of reasons, right? Like I said, polio is not a virus. It's not a congenital defect. It's a deficiency in a vitamin. And so that is not a risk genetically to her passing anything on to her progeny, other than perhaps passing on her strength, her fortitude, her ability to recover from it, and her propensity for putting her all into her kids. So that's her story, and I'm sticking with it. It's not a story I ever thought I'd tell, because sometimes you think, well, people think you were neglectful or anything of the sort. Yeah, I know you got eye boogies. We got to clean those too. So yeah, typically I'm shy about sharing those things. I don't want anybody to think that they're in any way, shape, or form neglected, but it was time to share her story. She's had enough. She's hot. She's done. So I'm going to leave it there. I hope you're having a fabulous day wherever you are in this world. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Be kind. And thank you for being a part of my community. Bye for now.